Good afternoon. My name is Ginger Barron, and I manage the Research, Evaluation, and Performance portfolio at the Justice Department's Office on Violence Against Women. Welcome to this webinar about your progress report, which is due in the new Just Grants system at the end of this month. We'll also provide some tips that may help you complete your report and point you toward resources that can help if you come across challenges. Tara and I will be sure that there is ample time for questions and answers at the end. Also, my OVW colleague, Lucy Moran, will be keeping track of questions as you enter them in the chat box so that we can be sure to address them before our hour is up. That said, I expect that there will be some questions for which we do not have an answer at the ready, but Tara, Lucy, and I will attempt to track down the info you need after this webinar, and we'll put you in touch with someone who can assist. So before we get started, I want to mention a few things. First, I want to thank Tara and her fantastic colleagues at the Measuring Effectiveness Initiative, or MEI, for convening this webinar and for their support in our ongoing partnership. And also thanks to Stephanie at NCJ SCJ for providing this virtual forum, which makes today's webinar possible. Next, on behalf of OVW, I'd like to wish each of you a Happy New Year and thank you for everything that you do to support survivors and hold offenders accountable. The best thing about my job is that I get this incredible bird's eye view of the critical work that OVW grantees do every day across the nation to make their communities safer and more just. COVID-19 made 2020 an especially challenging year for everyone working in this space. And while a new year can be a new start in so many ways, the reality is that victim services providers, law enforcement, and others continue to struggle with how to do their work safely while the pandemic continues. At OVW, we are honored to support your work, and we're grateful for everything that you do. Finally, I want to acknowledge that the new Just Grants system rollout has not gone as smoothly for everyone as we might have hoped. Some issues are a matter of just figuring out a new system, and some things are bugs that require fixes. OVW is coordinating with our colleagues at the Office of Justice Programs, which manages this new system, to resolve issues and deploy support as quickly as possible. Please continue to log issues with your program specialist and the OVW Just Grant Support Desk. We at OVW know that every minute that grantees spend dealing with administrative wrinkles is a minute less spent helping a survivor, and so we are working at full force to make sure everyone has what they need to navigate the new system. Thank you for your patience in the meantime, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules today to join us. Next, I have a bit of good news to share with you, which is that OVW will issue a 1-month extension on your progress reports that are normally due on January 30th. Reports instead will be due on February 28th. We're working to get this change registered in the system, at which time formal notification to grantees will go out. So let's take a minute to review the missions of our separate but collegial organizations. Over the past 2 decades, OVW has administered $9 billion in grants under programs authorized by the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA. Our appropriations for fiscal year 2021, which is part of the newly enacted government spending bill, are higher than ever before in the history of VAWA funding. While much of our work is focused on grant making, we also provide leadership within the Justice Department and through our partnerships with other federal agencies on combating domestic and dating violence, sexual assault, and stalking. The mission of our office is to provide that federal leadership and to help communities in their efforts to reduce these crimes and ensure justice. So now I'm going to hand it over to Tara Wheeler.
Thank you, Ginger. Hi, everybody. My name is Tara Wheeler, and I work for the Violence Against Women Act Measuring Effectiveness Initiative, which we abbreviate by calling VAWA MEI because that's a mouthful. But you also might know us as Muskie. This is because we work in an institute called the Muskie School for Public Service, which is part of the University of Southern Maine. So at VAWA MEI, our overall goal is to support accurate data reporting so that decision makers, and these decision makers range from OVW staff to elected representatives at the U.S. House and Senate. So we support the accurate data reporting so that these decision makers know the good work that's being funded under the Violence Against Women Act. This really breaks down into us supporting both grantees and OVW. We support grantees by providing technical assistance regarding how to demystify the data reports and trying to help grantees, concentrate on the good work of serving victims and supporting the Violence Against Women Act purpose areas. And we do that by being the experts so grantees don't have to be. We also support OVW by translating and compiling the data into reports. So every 6 months, grantee reported data is put into what we call summary data reports, and these are made for each grant program. Additionally, every 2 years, we help OVW create the biennial report to Congress, which is a compilation of all the grant-funded activities over those 2 years and helps support, continuing reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. Sorry, mouse issue. So today on the agenda, we will be reviewing a few different things. We'll be going over how you can access and submit your progress reports. We're also going to show some of the tools and resources that are available through the VAWA MEI website. We're going to also discuss some of the Just Grants user support resources. And then Ginger will also be giving additional information on progress reporting during COVID-19. And then finally, we're going to leave a space for answering questions. So as mentioned before, any questions you have, put those in the chat. They'll be compiled, and we'll get to those at the end of the webinar. And now Ginger's going to go over how to report, how to access the report.
Thank you, Tara. One question that's popped up I will acknowledge now is about whether there will be a recording of this webinar. Yes, the recording and the transcript will be posted, so if you feel like you missed something, you'll be able to go back and check that out. Okay, so moving on to accessing your progress report. In the next few minutes, I'm going to review how a performance report submission is supposed to go in Just Grants. I don't expect anyone to absorb the step-by-step as I go over it, so I recommend checking out the training material on the Just Grants user support page after this webinar. Some new tools have just been posted within the past week, so it will definitely be to your benefit to look around on that site. Also, I want to emphasize that the best thing that you can do right now is get your PDF form prepared for submission. If the actual process of uploading and submitting it in Just Grants is proving challenging for you, you have an additional month now, and I'm going to re-announce because I know some folks joined us after the intro remarks. I want to make sure everybody knows that we very recently have secured a 1-month extension for these reports that would normally be due on January 30th. You'll now have till February 28th. We're working on getting that into the system, at which time formal notification will go out to all grantees. But rest assured, if you're having difficulties with that, you now have more time to work out those problems. And again, in the meantime, the best thing you can do is just get your form filled out so it's ready to go. So please consult the email that your organization or agency should have received from Lucy in early December. And if you don't have access to that email or didn't receive it, you can also pull the correct version of the form off MEI's website, and Tara's going to show you where to find that shortly. Please be sure to use the correct form. Do not take an old form that you submitted and just update it. It's really critical that you use that correct new copy of the form. Not the items in it aren't changed, it's just the underlying code. So please make sure that you use that correct form. Thank you. So moving on, this link here, which you'll also find on that support page I mentioned, is for a step-by-step video that shows you how to upload and submit your report. So that's what I'm going to go through kind of in a brief fit here. You can start by going to your assigned awards and clicking on the award ID. Scroll down to the next due performance report and click the Begin button that you'll find at the right. As an alternate approach, you can also find the report in your work list. We have heard that some grantees are only seeing future reports in their work list and not the next due one. So try to navigate and scroll through that queue to look for your July to December 2020 report and make sure that you're opening and working in the correct one. And then click the case ID associated with that report. Next, make sure that it's correctly marked as a regular or final report, although this should be preloaded for you. And note that if you received a supplemental award back in September, then your next report is going to be regular, not final, because the supplement would have pushed out your project end date. There's also a comment box which you can feel free to enter any information about your report. Then you're going to click the Upload button. You'll scroll down and find that under Attachments. And you can select the correct file from your files and upload that. You can name it anything you'd like, but what's important is that in that category drop-down list, it should automatically show as a performance report. So you just want to make sure that it's showing correctly and change it if for some reason it's not. And then as your last step, you will click Submit. So here are some Just Grants resources. Again, I can't emphasize enough that what seems confusing or not clear from the very quick run-through I did now is covered in more detail and provides more information on these links here. So please be sure to check those out. And now I'm going to hand it over to Tara, who's going to get into the details of your PDF report form.
Thank you, Ginger. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to screen share my screen to kind of walk you through the VAWA MEI website. Stephanie, would you mind switching over to the screen share capacity? Thank you. Okay. Okay, so here is the VAWAMEI.org website, and we have lots of resources for grantees on our website. So if you look at the top, you can see that we have grant programs, and we also have resources for webinars, resources for some of those reports, the reports that I mentioned previously, and we also have additional tools and resources. But everything we have can be accessed through the grant programs. So we're going to concentrate on that today. So under the grant programs, we have a different thumbnail for each program, each of the OVW grant programs. So we are, just as an example, let's say I'm an Improving Criminal Justice Response grantee. So I'm going to look over here, and here just is a snippet of what is available. So we have forms and instructions, and I'm going to come back to this in just a minute. So you can download the forms from our website, as well as separate instructions that provide greater detail about what the questions are asking for. We also have information on trainings, so this includes any training material handouts that we had for our webinars, also recordings of those made for IC program grantees. You can also request individualized technical assistance, and you would just register, and we would then set up a time for someone to meet with you one-on-one to go over any of your reporting questions. We also have a variety of reporting tools available to grantees. So this includes some of the training videos, but also an FTE calculator and some additional resources. Here are the reports. So each program comes out with its own reports every 6 months, which are the summary data reports. And then as I mentioned, the report to Congress, you can always look at the most recent report to Congress's chapter on your program. And lastly, we have FAQs. So, you know, we have these great FAQs written up based on frequently asked questions we get, and we give pretty good explanations of what the question's asking for. So hopefully you guys can use this resource, our website as a resource, but also you can always contact us, and we are happy to help. So now I'm going to go back up and just walk through what it's like to download and fill out one of these reports. So in previous reporting periods, our reports were always samples because you would need to download and fill out the report that was in GMS. Well, that's no longer the case, and so these reports have been modified. There's no new content, just slight modifications so that you can fill out these reports and submit these. So to do so, first of all, we do have instructions here, and we also have a video that describes it. What's kind of difficult is depending on your browser and your settings, everything can kind of download differently. But hopefully I can give broad instructions. So here's the report. To download, I'm going to click this download button, and I get a file folder pop-up asking you where to save it. I'm just going to hit save, and it's going into my downloads folder. So save. From here I can say show in folder. So here it is in the folder. Now this is the important part. This report must be filled out using Adobe. If you have a PDF viewer in your web browser, that won't be able to work with the coding in the form. So it must be filled out in Adobe. So to open it in Adobe, you can right-click the document. So right-click it, open with, and go to Adobe Acrobat Reader DC. And here we are. Here's the form. On this form, the questions start at page 2. I would just begin by putting in the current date, the drop-down. Now this is where some of the changes have happened. Previously, grantee name and grant number were automatically populated in GMS. That is no longer the case. So you'll be entering your grantee name, and for here I'll put in VAWA MEI, entering your grant number, and make sure you get this accurate. And then going through and answering the questions just as you normally would. There's one item I do want to point out, which is sometimes there's a glitch regarding regarding the funds used questions, which are the yes, no. So typically, when you select yes, if you select yes to using funds at a section, it opens up all these boxes. So for instance, if I hit no, it's going to skip me ahead, but you can see these boxes. I no longer get a cursor inside of those. That's because these boxes only open once you select yes. Sometimes grantees have had a problem where they select yes, but the boxes still aren't open. If that's the case, we recommend that you then select no, and after you select no, select yes again. And for some reason, that seems to fix the problem. I think that this is something, maybe a glitch that appeared in an Adobe update or something, but it's easy to bypass. But of course, if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us. And then, as I mentioned, it's just filling out the form as you normally would, just filling out and only reporting on your grant-funded activities during the 6-month reporting period. So even though this form is 59 pages, chances are you would only need to fill out a small fraction of this form because you're not funding all the applicable activities. So when you select no to an activity, you just get jumped to the next section. Okay, so I believe I can stop sharing now. As I mentioned before, if you need any one-on-one, if you need any technical assistance, you can reach out to us. Our contact information is at the end of this webinar. But also, if you have quite a few questions and you really want to get in depth, you can request one-on-one technical assistance to set up a meeting and make sure that there's enough time to go through all of your questions. And now, Ginger is going to take over again.
Thanks so much, Tara. Before I get into this next piece, we're saving most of the Q&A for the end, but I'm gathering from the chat that there's some confusion about the extension that I mentioned earlier, so let me clarify. If you are a grantee who typically reports every 6 months and you have a grant performance report due on January 30th normally, then you have an extension on this next one that would normally be due at the end of this month. That extension is to until February 28th. That does not apply to the two, so if you're a STOP administrator or a SAS administrator and you file a report with OVW in March, that remains unchanged. However, I know some of our grantees who are with us today are also subrecipients of STOP and SAS awards. You typically will send your annual reports onto your state the administrator of the STOP or SAS funds. And so any questions about when those reports are due to your state administrator are beyond the scope that I can answer, so please refer them to your state administrators. So moving on, I want to talk a little bit about some of the questions and concerns that have been raised around reporting during this time of COVID-19. I hope that having an extension will help alleviate some of these concerns, but I understand that some grantees may be hindered in reporting complete and accurate information due to the pandemic, especially if they or their project partners don't have access to files. Therefore, we recommend that you complete the progress report to the best of your ability and submit it on time. Every progress report form includes a narrative field at the end where grantees are invited to provide additional information about their data. You can use that space to explain any incomplete or missing data. And we encourage you to use other narrative fields to discuss the impact that COVID-19 has had on your activities. There's also been some questions about grantees who are unable to collect data, such as the number of people who participate in a web-based training or the number of victims served during remote service delivery. And folks have asked if they should just provide estimates. So we recommend that you do not report estimates for any of those numerical fields. All numbers reported should have adequate source documentation, meaning records to support what you report. For instance, an employee's timesheet is source documentation to support the number of hours that that employee worked. A technical assistance log that tracks TA requests and their responses is another example of source documentation. So make sure to communicate with your OVW program specialist, again, by using those narrative fields so that you can explain any missing data and describe activities that you're just not able to quantify in that report right now. That is totally fine. We've also received some questions about how to report on data that wasn't available at the time that you submitted a report but became available at a later date. So maybe the report that you submitted back in July was incomplete for some way and you got some fresh data from your project partners. Just send an email to your OVW program specialist about that, apprise them of any new or additional data, and they can instruct you on what to do from there. We've also received some questions about how to validate a progress report if you want to leave a data field blank, but for whatever reason it's triggering a validation error when you try to do that. Most fields should be able to be left blank and the form should still validate successfully. But if in the event that that's not working out for you, enter a 1 in that space and then use that narrative question at the end that asks you to provide additional information about your data to say, something like, we entered a 1 in question 26 in order to validate the form, but the number there should actually be deleted. Just use the notes to provide that information. So OVW and MEI recognize that a pandemic presents tremendous challenges, and we anticipate that those challenges will be reflected in progress reports. Therefore, we recommend that grantees include some key words. You can use the word pandemic or COVID-19 when describing the related adjustments to your programming that you've had to make when to make sure that you're continuing to offer services and continue to meet your project goals. It's a good idea to use that goals and objectives question set towards the end to speak about the impact of COVID-19 on your progress towards your goals, and when you've had to maybe change up your plans and reroute things and just have be creative or change your approach to meet the needs of the current time. Please remember that maintaining victim confidentiality is of paramount importance. So grantees need to track data in a manner that does not jeopardize confidentiality. This has come up in questions related to providing services remotely, and there's some great resources through the National Network to End Domestic Violence and other TA providers if you need further assistance about how to navigate that. But there are times before, during, and after the pandemic that this may mean that you don't report complete data in your progress reports, and that is okay. We always recommend that you use the unknown category for any demographic information that you were unable to obtain, and you can use narrative fields to explain missing victim services data or data collection challenges that you have experienced due to providing remote services or other issues related to the pandemic. Always victim confidentiality supersedes anything about your reporting requirements. So here are some a list of resources, and I think I saw some questions earlier in the chat about having access to these links. So this slide deck should be made available to everyone who registered so that you can go through and click on these links and explore what resources are available. And now I'll hand it over to Tara to talk about MEI's resources around these issues.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so here is a link. Here is links to a lot of many resources. So we have links to the COVID-19 facts, FAQs, as well as the reporting in a pandemic office hours recording. And we also have included links regarding writing narrative and narrative examples. But I'm also going to paste into the chat some links. So hold on. So I've pasted into the chat some links for our homepage, also the Contact Us page, our training page. Additionally, I also pasted in how to download a link to download a free version of Adobe Acrobat Reader. You do not have to pay for this version. You can just download it for free. And Julia has updated the Contact Us link because it seems like that got merged with some other text. So here is also some resources on who you can call for help and who you can reach out to. So if you need technical assistance or support with your Just Grants account, this slide shows the Just Grants support information, contact information, and notes that one of those contacts is specifically for OVW support. Additionally, you can contact OVW. You would be contacting OVW if you needed to verify your grant-supported activities, if you need approval for products, if there's any problems with submitting the progress report by the deadline. So any of those types of activities, you would want to reach out to OVW. And lastly, if you have any questions about the content of the reporting forms and the data being asked for, you can reach out to us at VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act Measuring Effectiveness Initiative, and that's our general contact line, but we have about 15 people who are available to answer questions. And now we're going to jump ahead so we can start answering some questions. I am going to go one slide forward because it has our contact information. And I'm going to answer just some questions that are MEI, VAWA MEI specific, while Ginger can look over the other questions that came in. So first of all, this PowerPoint presentation can be downloaded from our training website. And here's the link for that, for the PowerPoint presentation. As I also showed a bunch of the links that we have available, and just as a reminder, Adobe, you have to use Adobe to fill out these forms. I do see a question regarding that someone's not able to enter a date for question number 1. I would encourage you to make sure you're using Adobe Acrobat Reader. And if not, you know, you can download it in the link that we gave above, which is gettoadobe.com/reader. So try that out. And if you still are having trouble entering information, you can reach out to us at the Violence Against Women Act, and we can try to walk you through that. And then I see a question about the dash issue. So some of the forms have a couple of the forms have an issue where dashes can't be entered into the grant number. That has not been fixed, but if you're not able to enter dashes into the grant number box, just please forego using dashes and just enter all the other numbers like the year, you know, the abbreviation. And then we also, and then if you're having problems filling out information, like I said, please reach out to us directly, filling out these forms. You know, please reach out to us directly. Once you've made sure that you're using Adobe Acrobat DC to fill out that information, you can ask us questions. The problem is that sometimes glitches appear to happen from different computer to different computer, and so we can walk you through it and try to test and find solutions, but a lot of some of these glitches can be hard to identify and unless we talk to someone directly and can see it. And I see another question regarding about MOU partners, and if they attend a training. Somebody asked, are they required to report all the stats for their program or just information related to the training? You would be only wanting to report the activities that were funded by your grant. So only grant-funded activities should be reported. So if that training was funded through your grant, you would report specifically on that training, but you wouldn't be reporting on all your MOU partners' activities because you just want to hone in on what was funded under your grant. And you would, regarding a recording of this webinar, yes, there will be a recording available of this webinar, and it should be available by Thursday or Friday. And at that time, we will be sending information out to the people who are on the webinar today. That includes the link to that recording. Here's a good question. Is the PDF narrative section easier to navigate? No, unfortunately, it's still the same narrative section. But hopefully when Just Grants is up and running, it will be much easier to navigate. And once we can do reports within Just Grants. And yeah, I think I got through those questions, but if I missed a question about specifically reporting regarding your data, please put it in the chat, and so I can try to address it future in the future. Ginger, would you like to answer some of the questions that came in for you?
Sure. Thanks, Tara. Thanks for providing those very helpful and informative answers. And thanks to everybody who's been putting their questions in the chat. I'll work on getting through these, and if we miss something, we'll be sure to be back in touch with some follow-up information. So first of all, I want to say that there are some questions coming through about problems people are having accessing Just Grants, seeing certain things in there, and navigating in Just Grants. I'm not in a position right now to diagnose those problems or assist you, but definitely want to make sure that you get the answers you need. So please, you can reach out to me, but your best bet is to contact your OVW program specialist, and also include on your email the OVW Just Grants support email address. include your award number, and if you can, include screenshots. That'll really help the team at OVW pinpoint what's going on and point you in the right direction so you can get your issues in there resolved. If you do not know who your OVW program specialist is, please get in touch and I'll make sure that, that I can connect you with that person. So I'm going to try to answer some of these questions, but let's see, what online platform is best to open and operate Just Grants, asked Christy. So we're finding that Chrome works the best. I'm not sure if other browsers work as well, but we've heard that Internet Explorer is not the best browser to use. There's some questions about when you're in Just Grants not seeing awards or not seeing performance reports. I don't want to say that there's not an issue that needs to be addressed there. All I can share right now is that whoever is assigned for the grant as the grant administrator, that's their role that's assigned on that award, that is the person who should be able to see the performance reports and upload and submit them. So if you're not the designated grant administrator, that could be the reason that you're not seeing that. And you may need to make some changes to the role assignments for your award if you are in fact the person who should be uploading those reports. Lori asked about seeing in Just Grants only future reports, like the next one, the January to June 2021 report, but not seeing this current one that's due. We have heard about that issue, so please look through your work queue. It might be lower in your work queue, which I understand is confusing, but make sure you scroll through that work list to try to find it. And if you still don't, please reach out to OVW Just Grants support. I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier because I know some people joined later and there have been some questions about the extension I announced. And to be clear, the reason that you haven't received a formal email about the extension for discretionary grantees reports is because we just very recently before this webinar were able to secure that. So we're working to get that extension registered in the system, at which time grantees will receive formal notification. That extension applies to any OVW grantee that normally would have a report due on January 30th. You now have one more month, and the report will be due on February 28th. And so I hope that answers some of the questions about will that be in writing from OVW. Yes, it certainly will. There are some questions about closeouts and financial reports, and I don't have the most current information on that. This webinar is just about the performance reporting. That's the only things I can speak to today. So please, if you have a question about your financial report or your closeout, please get in touch with your OVW program specialist about that. There were also some questions about needing to submit a GAN. Maybe you need an extension to finish your project. Then I would recommend that one also be directed to your program specialist who can tell you what they need to get your GAN in the system. There were a couple questions about supplements and new awards. And so let's see, the best way to answer this is probably to let folks know that you have, for every single OVW grant number that you have, you're going to have a report due. So I'm going to put a few scenarios out here. Let's say you are a LAV grantee who had like a 2018 award and you just got a supplement to that award in September. And you still have that same award number that is 2018, but now you have more money in there and a later end date for your project. That is a supplement you have. It's one award, so you're just filing one report for that award. Now, suppose you're a tribal governments grantee and you have a tribal governments award from 2019, but you also just received a new 2020 award under OVW's special initiative to provide assistance to tribes related to COVID-19. You still have that. You have a 2019 award, but you also have a 2020 new award. So you have two reports due. And this, just to be clear, this webinar is for folks who are going to be using those PDF forms. For the tribal COVID initiative recipients, you will be receiving further instructions starting this week for how to file your report. And that's actually a good segue to let folks know that everything that we're going over today and the way that you're going to be reporting this first go around in Just Grants is essentially a stopgap solution while we build out a new performance reporting tool in the Just Grants system. We are piloting that new tool with a small number of grantees this first go round who will receive specific information about that. That way we can use that pilot to refine the approach and make sure that when we do roll out a new tool for all of you, that it goes smoothly. So I'm not going to say any more about extensions and supplements because I don't want to confuse things any further. But if you do have a question, please contact your program specialist. You're welcome to reach out to me. Happy to answer your questions.
Okay, there were a couple of other questions that have come out in the chat. So first is a question about if you received budget clearance if you hadn't received budget clearance by the end of the year, how should you proceed? How do we fill out the progress reporting form given that hold? So this is, I'm just going to answer information on how to fill out a progress report when no funds have been used. So what you're going to need to do is you're still going to have to complete all the mandatory questions and sections of the form. So this will include the general information section, including the percentage of funds used to address sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. You will also need to check some purpose areas, and you will also need to be reporting on the CCR, Coordinated Community Response. And then lastly, you'll have to fill out information on your grant goals and objectives. And in there, you'll just be reporting that funds had not yet begun yet. This is the same for if you have two different award numbers, one a previous grant and one a final grant. And if that final grant, one a previous grant and one a continuation, and if you haven't begun using that continuation grant funds, you will be doing the same thing with that continuation award numbers report, just by reporting the mandatory sections and then adding to the narrative grant goals and objectives, about why the report doesn't have any data in it really.
Thanks, Tara. And just to add on to what Tara said, we understand that many reports will be, very short on information if you don't have a cleared budget. That's fine. There's still a reporting requirement that has to be fulfilled, but we understand if there's not much to put in there.
Yeah. There was one different question about form validations and whether to enter random numbers. So I would say that it's best to try to enter the random numbers information to try so that you can validate the form. However, we acknowledge that the ICJR and the rural form have had some validation issues where there's some incorrect validations coded in. And so if for those grantees, I would suggest validating just to make sure that you got every error that you could get, and you can leave the ones, the validation errors that are, contradictory to how you should be reporting.
Thanks, Tara. Looks like there's been a couple other questions in the chat about different people at grantee organizations getting access in Just Grants and having their roles assigned. I don't have it at my fingertips now, but there is guidance on that user support website about how to make sure that roles are assigned, so please look for that. If you're not able to find it or still having difficulty, reach out to OVW Just Grant Support. I just put the email address again in the chat, and your program specialist.
And I want to clarify a couple of questions have come up about downloading the form from Just Grants. And I want to clarify that you will not be downloading the form from Just Grants. once you've finished completing the form, it will be uploaded into Just Grants. But to access the form, you can receive it either two ways. One would have been an email from OVW that contained an attachment that had the form, or you can go to our website, VAWAMEI.org, and download the form from there. So, you know, the forms will not be available for download from in the Just Grant system.
Hey, Tara, another good question came in here from a new grantee asking if you just received an award in 2020, so you would have received that award in September, when are your reports due? So that's a great question. Even though the reporting period is July 1st through December 31st, and you didn't get your award till midway there, you still have a report that's due typically at the end of January, but with its extension at the end of February. New grantees who get an award in the fall do have to file their first report early the next calendar year. I hope that's clear. I'm going to ask my co-presenters and colleagues if I've missed anything from the chat.
Let's see. I think from what I can see, there's a question about are new reporting forms available in Spanish or other languages. Unfortunately, we do not have any reporting forms available in other languages at this time. And then, yes, I think we've covered all the other questions, but I do just want to reiterate that right after this webinar, we're going to be working on compiling this webinar into a video and then also updating the transcripts to make sure that the transcript accurately reflects what we talked about. And we will send that link out to all the people who registered for the webinar today.
Great, thank you, Tara. Real quick before we close out, there's been a question about ASAP enrollment impacting reporting. I'm not sure how to specifically answer that question. All I can say is if you have an active OVW grant, you do have a reporting requirement coming up here. Me and Tara both have our email addresses up here, and we welcome any follow-up inquiries or questions that you have. We are so grateful for the time that you spent with us today and for the time and effort you're putting into managing your awards and for all that you do in your communities. Thank you, everybody. Oh, there's a question about reminding folks which narrative questions should be answered this reporting period. Tara, can you remind me if the certain narrative questions at the end are required for this one or next one?
It's for next one. So this one, the only narrative questions that would need to be answered are the grant goals and objectives.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for your patience with this, for your time today. Take good care and be in touch if you have questions. Goodbye.